Hey everybody, let's chat. Okay, a couple things to put in order before I get started with today. So, if you did not know, Keeping It a Buck with B turned 1 on January 10th. And I just have to say, like, I posted this to my Instagram, but it don't count on there. It count on here. For all of y'all that's been clicking and watching my shit. Thank you. Like, y'all really don't understand. Y'all have seen this little up and down thing with me the last part of this year. But y'all still been like, even times where I wasn't posting, y'all, my views was still going up. People were still coming to my page, watching my stuff. And I just thank y'all from the bottom of my heart. When you comment, when you give me feedback, when you see me in person, when you share it, like when you tell somebody about it, all of that just means so much to me because like, this YouTube shit, I ain't making no money from this. Not yet. We speaking that into fruition. I will, but not right now. So to stay committed and to devote energy and time to this it's been easier in certain periods of the year and it's been harder. So to know that I made it through my first year, for those of you all that didn't know, I recently just was able to replace my MacBook. The MacBook that I had went out on me probably 2 years ago. So I've been doing like my basic type of paperwork, like resume edits and applying for jobs, basic stuff on this HP that's slow as hell. But I was able to bless myself with a new MacBook for Christmas. And so, like, to know that I've been doing all of this, keeping it a buck from my phone. Like, I even tried to transition to doing it on my computer. I'm acting a little slow. I don't know what I'm doing yet. But to know that I got 230 people that like my stuff, that look for my videos, it's more than what I could have imagined I would accomplish in the first year. So thank you for all of your support. Number one. Number two. This is for Chicago. If you a subscriber and you don't live in Chicago, sorry. But my Chicago subscribers, I will be a part of an event called Battle of the Sexes with Forever Shy Network. My homie Terry, who was in my last, a couple videos before this one, he has his own podcast, media type network he's trying to do. He's bringing a bunch of Chicago millennials, the shit talkers. Cause you know I'm gonna be there. Diamond gonna be there. You know my homeboy Reggie, he on the roster. Larry, on Twitter, Larry Legend, Smoked Out Saturdays. Like it's gonna be some decent talent in the building. People with some emotional intelligence, some more than others. But we gonna have a good time, and it'll be pretty entertaining. So I will have the link to the event. It is February 9th. In the description part of this video. So please come out, support the upcoming media talent, personality talent, all of that good stuff, okay? So what I want to talk about today, we back in the serious space. So it's kind of serious, but not really. This is more of a psychoeducation lesson. Something that I've noticed in our community, across communities because I work with mainly white people. So I do a group at my job called Relationship Dynamics where I created the curriculum and I center the curriculum around just basic things you need to know to be effective when it comes to your interpersonal relationships, your relationships with other people, your friendships, your family, how you talk and deal and, just navigate relationships in general. So in that curriculum, one of the groups is centered around fair fighting. And that's what I want to talk about today. I will eventually do a group strictly on the communication styles, but I'm going to briefly mention some of that in here because it counts. I feel like there are people who struggle with getting where they want to go in life because they are inefficient in how they communicate with people. And if you've ever noticed with yourself or with other people, that they always seem to just have issues with folks, and it's usually because they don't have a certain level of knowledge when it comes to how to communicate with somebody in a healthy way. And so what fair fighting focuses on is really more so the intimate relationships and how we go about having better and more successful disagreements and respectfully not ruining the rapport with somebody because you disagree. And I feel like that's an area a lot of people struggle in. What I'll be using to guide this chat is an excerpt that I use in the group, which is from the Messages, the Communication Skills book by Matthew McKay, Martha Davis, and Patrick Fanning. So it's an older book, but I found this excerpt when I had to start doing the group, and I feel like it has a lot of really good information for people to know. So I want you all to, this is really, I want, if you want a relationship, you definitely need to be watching this. Because this is for you more than anybody. And that's not to say that all relationships have communication problems, but usually, I bet your bottom dollar that at some point you witnessed an argument where you saw somebody hit below the belt. Where it was just like, oh, clutch his pearls. I can't believe they said that. Like, why would they say that? Or just knowing that they just went, the conversation went left, it went places it wasn't supposed to go. People said stuff that they couldn't take back. And so a combination of these things is ineffective communication skills and emotional dysregulation. So when we get overwhelmed, when we get angry, I see it on social media all the time. When I get mad, my mouth get reckless. Y'all, that's not okay. It's not okay, okay? Because we know, y'all know, words hurt. And a lot of stuff you can't take back. You can say you forgive somebody, but some words ring true in your head. So I need all of us to be a bit more conscious about how we speak to people or how we handle important or difficult conversations or arguments when we are not feeling happy. Because that's when shit hits the fan. Okay? So I'm going to give you all a couple tools, a couple gems on how to better your disagreements, your arguments, and how to just have a respectful exchange. See, it takes a certain level of maturity to be able to put what I'm getting ready to talk about to you. Like, if you are intentional about doing these things, it's not going to work. You're going to fall back into the same patterns you've always had. So, again, listen, take some notes, and let this burn in your brain so that way, moving forward, you can do a better job of managing situations that can go left. Okay? So, first part. So, what do we consider unfair fighting? Unfair fighting has a few core beliefs. That conflict is bad. That, God forbid, we disagree with each other. There are a lot of people who are passive who are afraid to speak up for themselves or to be assertive because they don't want to deal with it. Or, more common one that I see, men, I'm going to call y'all out right here. Men don't like conflict with women. Like, I've heard so many times, I don't be trying to argue, I don't be trying to do all of that. And what that results in is that's avoidance, right? And so that is, again, adding to this belief that conflict is bad. We can't disagree. I don't want to deal with, having friction with somebody. So I'd rather just not deal with it or act like it didn't happen. So that's an ineffective way to go about having a problem or an issue with somebody. And it doesn't lead to a solution. So conflict, in a sense, is inevitable. Sometimes we cannot have resolution if we have no conflict, okay? So we want to take away this negative connotation of conflict, because just because we have conflict doesn't mean it has to be rude, messy, nasty. We can just have a thing, but that doesn't mean that we can't respect each other in that. So we want to get away from the idea that conflict is something to be avoided, because we don't grow, we don't fix anything through avoiding conflict. The second belief is that one person's needs are more important than the other. So if I go into a disagreement feeling like, what I need is more important than what you need, then there is we are starting out on an equal playing field. Because I already feel like whatever I need to accomplish is more important than what you need to accomplish. And it becomes I'm right, you're wrong, I'm good, you're bad type of scenario. And we don't want to have that narrative when we're trying to have constructive conversations with people. And the third belief is the belief that this needs to end with somebody winning. We have to step away from feeling like I beat you, or I got one up on you, or I was more petty than you. Like, all of that stuff is messy. It doesn't take us any closer to problem solving. So we want to move away from the idea that it's me versus you. It's actually you and that person versus the problem. So when you go into it and you can have an understanding that, like, we just have a problem, we need a solution or a compromise for. Not that I need to prove that I'm better or I'm more right than you are or vice versa. Because all that does is just lead to unproductive conversations, arguments, debates, like, and you get nowhere. I know y'all have been in arguments with somebody and it's just like, y'all just talking in circles because nobody is being solution focused. People are too concerned with ego and pride and feeling like they need to come out on top of whatever the problem is. And if they don't, then God forbid they have to say sorry. So we want to step away from those things. Now I want to talk about, there are a few identifying factors that go into a situation going left. Now we want to remember, I'm speaking on communication. Now this can be applied really in a romantic sense because that's what the context of this chapter was written from. But I also tell people this can really apply to anybody that you're close with, and that if you think in your mind you may even have a love-hate relationship where it's like sometimes y'all get along, but then y'all just can't see eye to eye, or y'all just it's just somebody that you're close with, but y'all always into it. These are a couple of things that could be contributing to that. So, number one, trying to have a conversation when the timing is not right. Now, I understand that can be subjective. However, when you want to force your agenda onto the other person and insist that y'all discuss something at what could be an inappropriate time, you do yourself a disservice. And what I want to point out is that usually what motivates us to have an important or difficult conversation with somebody and the timing isn't right is driven by our anxiety. So we get to a place where we feel like it's on our mind, it's on our heart, we thinking about it all the time, we ruminating on it, we overthinking, and we got to do this right now. Because if I can't talk about this right now with you, then I can't reach this this level of like equilibrium that allows my nervous system to calm. So I get it. I'm an anxious person. I've been in many situations where I could not control my anxiety, so I pressed the issue. And by me pressing the issue, I ended up, one, not having the conversation the way I wanted it to because it was being driven by my nerves, by my emotional dysregulation. It wasn't driven by me thinking clearly or me having a clear understanding of what it is I hope to accomplish with the conversation. It was just driven off of emotion and impulse. And usually conversations that are driven off of emotion and impulse don't end well. So, again, these are examples of bad timing. Can be, so when you're busy or the other person is busy, like in a rush, when you're both tired, when you've both been drinking, when there are a bunch of other people around. You want to think about these factors, because how many times have we seen, the girl in the club trying to have a serious conversation with her boyfriend? It's music, everybody around, you making a scene. It just doesn't work out. All because you couldn't hold it in till the next morning when y'all wasn't drunk and y'all sobered up. So, everyone, this is the biggest one. Don't be trying to have serious conversations with people when y'all been drinking, or smoking for that matter. If you high, it's not going to be productive. Usually people, especially when people are drunk, they be saying stuff they don't remember. They be, you sitting here at this whole conversation, you talk to them about the next morning, they be like, they don't recall. And so you may have felt like you got something off your chest and you got something accomplished, but they don't even remember this situation. So now you got to do it all over again. So that's something you want to think about. I remember when I was younger, and I would want to ask my dad for something, to go somewhere, for some money, for anything. My mama used to always tell me to just be cautious of the timing. Like, she would tell me, don't ask him soon as he walk in the door from work. Because you used to be thirsty, like, oh, he home, now I can go talk to him because I'm nervous and I'm anxious and I want to get this over with. No, she said, don't do that. Let him come in, let him go take a shower, let him sit down and get something to eat, and then talk to him, because now he in a good mood. And now as an adult, I understand that. Don't be asking me nothing as soon as I walk through the door. Even at work, you ever got to work, and the moment you step foot in there, people might ask you a whole bunch of questions, and you don't be in the right headspace or your attitude may not be in check to deal with that yet. So you may get an answer you don't want, and that's what ends up happening is when you try to move in on bad timing, you don't set yourself up to have a successful conversation. So that means anxiety management and coming to a point where you have an understanding of what's a good time for both of us to talk. Because that's something else I want to do that I don't usually do in work. You want to set a time, okay? You want to secure the person's agreement to have this talk. Now, this means that, again, if you're on the other end of this and so you know somebody, you got something important they want to talk to you about, you can't be avoiding. This is what I talked about earlier. No avoiding strategies. You have to be committed to just being like, okay, we got to have this talk. Let's pick a day. Let's pick a time where that's good for the both of us, where we can create the space to do it in a constructive way versus somebody feeling like they got to strong arm the other person into having the conversation. I definitely, if you are the person that is trying to be respectful and set a time and you feel like the person is dodging you, I feel like one, that speaks to how they feel about your feelings. You don't care enough to sit down and have this conversation. You don't care about how I feel enough to sit down and have this conversation that you know is important to me. That should tell you something about him, okay? Because if a person really cares about what you think and how you feel, they will comply. Okay, tomorrow after work, let's meet up, let's talk this out. Okay, that's what mature relationships look like. Not all of this running around, avoiding stuff. No, we grown. It's time to talk. Okay? So when you set a time, it also lessens your anxiety. I know for me, if I knew like, okay, I got something I really want to talk to this person about, the time ain't been right, but they say, okay, tomorrow at this time we'll meet up. Now I'm calmer. Because now I got a day, I got a time, and I can prepare. And that preparing is different than like emotionally ramping yourself up to be like, all right, so this how I'm going to get this thing. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about preparing in the sense that you can go into the conversation mentally ready to remain calm, to know what you want to accomplish in the conversation, and to stay away and block out anything that may be unproductive or irrelevant to the conversation. Keeping it on a good path, okay? So, that's number one. Bad timing. Do a better job by setting a time and you all come to an agreement, so this is when we're going to talk. And respectfully, knowing that just because you want to talk about it right now, don't mean the other person can talk about it right now. Okay? Calling them up at their job, interrupting them. So, we gotta chill out. Woosah. Okay? So, let's move on. So, the next factor that goes into unfair fighting is blaming. I know some of y'all got that bad. So pretty much blaming is the dangerous assumption that I'm right and you wrong. And pretty much you find that person responsible for the whole situation. Now, I understand that in your heart, you can wholeheartedly believe that that person is responsible for something. For the issue, for whatever it is that y'all have to talk about or that brings up, the disagreement. That's fine. But approach is everything. If your aim is to have a constructive conversation and to build some sort of understanding, you can't come through the gate blaming people. Because you know what happens when people feel blamed? They feel attacked, they get defensive, they shut down. And now how you going to have a conversation if now they don't want to talk? So, approach is everything. If you want somebody to be able to be open with you about something wrong that they did, you need to give them the space to do so. Because if you start calling them names, being accusatory, exaggerating everything, just making assumptions that speak ill to like their character, bringing up like old stuff that they did or how they messed up in the past, they're not going to listen to you. Ladies, I understand that you got a vault full of stuff that you want to bring up to that man. And this, I'm going to talk about this more in the next one. But you coming out the gate with the you and you and you and you, he's not going to hear you. He's going to tune you out, and you know you don't like that. Okay? So all I'm saying is, if you wish to have a productive conversation, you can't come out the gate swinging. Because then the other person, they're not going to give you nothing. You're not going to get nothing out of that conversation. They'll be like, all right, I'm done. You good. You got it. That. And that's just going to make you more upset. So, you want to refrain from having you messages. You do this, you do that, blah, 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 blah. So, how do we counteract blame? How do we get out of making sure that we don't come at people in a way that shrinks them, makes them pull away, and not even engage? You want to be able to state the facts, state the problem. You have to be able to articulate what it is that you do not like that they are doing. And by describing the facts of the situation, you can avoid blaming. So if you told me that you were going to do something, you didn't do it. I'm not saying you a lying ass motherfucker. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you a liar. I'm not, let's cut all of that. This is the problem. This is what you said you was going to do. This is what you did not do. Do you have an explanation? Chill as a cucumber. That's it. Let them just state the facts. Stick to what's going on. Because the thing is, when you get to bringing up, you did this and you did that, that's besides the point. The facts and the approach make all the difference. Okay? So, calling them out on exactly what it is. Because you can't refute facts. But if you get to talking about feel, all of this extra stuff, that's besides the point. So, the next one is having too many issues. Okay? When you upset, people usually go into their vault of everything negative that they've accrued on a person. And they just get to spitting it out, right? Because again, this aids in the whole I win, you lose, I'm good, you're bad. So if we into it and I feel like, you not praising me enough or, being, holding yourself accountable, whatever, I'm going to go and I'm going to start talking about every bad thing you ever did. Now, that don't get you nowhere. Because all you trying to do is have you trying to prove how much better of a person you are compared to them. And is that getting you closer to a solution to whatever y'all talking about? No, it is not. And the thing about bringing up having too many issues is it makes the disagreement and the argument messy, like just more messy than it needs to be. Like if the issue is about me not taking out the trash, then don't make the issue about the fact that I left the toilet seat up 3 months ago. So that's all I'm saying is you can only solve one problem at a time. When you arguing, it's very tempting to try to change the subject or again just try to add more ammo about to prove how much more right you are than the other person. But again, and now we addressing, you started off with one issue and now we addressing 5 different things. I'll give you a quick example of how a situation with too many issues can take a situation further left than it needs to go. I had a friend and we had gotten into it. She was being quiet and funny acting. And so I asked, what's going on? And what she said was she felt like I was throwing shade at her on Instagram. And then in the same text message mentioned how she felt like she was the black sheep of my friends or that I didn't treat her the same way I treated my other friends. Now, 2 very different issues. Issue number 1, we can talk about some Instagram shit. Like, we friends. We can deal with that. But then you want to add this heavy ass of an issue in the same breath. And that's not some surface level stuff. Like, the surface level stuff, we can deal with that. But if it's deeper stuff underneath that you using this opportunity to bring up, that means it's been on your mind. That means this is something you've been sitting on and you've been feeling, and now you're using this opportunity to bring it up. But that's not something you just throw out in the middle of a surface level argument. So again, we couldn't even deal with what the top issue was at hand. We had to go and unpack the deeper part of what was said, and it made things a lot bigger, and it took things a lot, like, it just took things less. And that probably wouldn't have happened if we had just dealt with the petty Instagram stuff, because that we could work through. But feeling resentment about friendship, that's a whole nother beast. Okay? So you don't, another reason why you don't really want to make a habit out of being passive. Now, I understand the idea of picking and choosing your battles. Like, you don't always want to, if it's something you feel like you can genuinely move past, then no, you don't need to always bring it up. But if this is something that nags at you, you can't not say anything, because the moment you get the opportunity, it's going to be like word bombing. Now, everything you hate about the person is going to come up. I used to have an ex like that, where it's like, motherfucker was smooth, not having no problems, and then the moment we get into it, you want to talk about 15 things I done did in the last 6 months that you ain't like. That's not fair. It's not fair to go there when, because then it leads somebody into a situation blindsided. So this speaks to why it is so important to communicate, listen to comprehend. Because without that, then you just building on stuff, you growing resentment, and the moment you get an opportunity to let their ass have it, you done let them have it. Okay? So don't have too many issues. Whatever the one issue is, let's stick to that and move forward. Okay. The next factor that goes into disagreement going extremely left is the fact that sometimes we cover other feelings with anger. So I've mentioned before on my channel that anger is usually an emotion that people learn to identify very early on or see act out. And so what happens is a lot of the other feelings or emotions that we associate as being negative, they usually get grouped up under anger. So a lot of people just don't know how to name their feelings or how to be specific about their feelings, and how to like kind of pick through to see, do I actually feel mad or am I feeling other things? Because the thing about anger is anger allows for us to express that we are hurt, but in a very tough way. Like a lot of the other emotions that we identify anger with, they pretty much call for us to be vulnerable. Like, for example, jealousy. Jealousy is an emotion that a lot of people try to shy away from claiming that they have. And there is nothing wrong with actually having the feeling of being jealous. It is when you project your jealousy onto other people in different forms because you are jealous that becomes a problem. But having the feeling of jealousy, it's just communicating to you, like all of our emotions do. Our emotions communicate things to us. So again, like you could feel jealous, but to say I'm jealous, that means I have to make myself vulnerable. And people don't like that. Whereas if I say I'm angry or I act like I'm angry, I can hide behind like this tough exterior and not have to show like this softer, more hurt side. If that makes sense. Like people don't like to show that they got feelings and that they hurt when they want to play tough, and we got to step away from that. So I think it's important that we learn to identify what it is that we're actually feeling. I've heard the best example of this is if you've ever heard a parent say, "I'm not mad, I'm disappointed," because that is you being able to differentiate between the fact that, like, observation-wise, you would think that, okay, if you a kid in school, you messed up, my parent gonna be mad at me. But to be able to say, it's not that I'm really angry with you, it's just that I expected more out of you, which has led me to feeling disappointed. That's different. And a lot of people will tell you that feels worse than having somebody be mad at you. But you want to be able to identify and just be vulnerable. Because what I will tell you is when you express the full range of feelings, you usually get a better response from whoever it is you're dealing with. So let's go with the jealousy example. If your man, if your man is playing jealous, let's say he's feeling jealous, right? But instead of saying he's feeling jealous or a little insecure, because sometimes jealousy is coupled with some, some of our insecurities, or we feel jealous because our insecurities are being triggered. He's just like, nah, I don't want you around them dudes. I don't want you doing this. I don't want you doing that. Now, for a woman, that's going to come off controlling. What's wrong with you? You insecure? Why I can't go? I'm not doing nothing. Like, what is your issue? So, for a man to come to a woman and say, babe, I'm just feeling jealous. I'm feeling like, if you do X, Y, Z, then another man may want you. However you want to put it. This is just me thinking off the top of my head of an example. But a woman is much more likely to soften up at hearing her man is a little jealous versus him expressing that in anger. Because then you shut down, you get defensive. But if you, as a man, can tell me you're feeling some jealousy, some of your insecurities are coming up, we can work on that. That I can work with. But you just coming out like this raging, acting like somebody daddy because you feeling away, that's something I can't get behind. So that's just a quick example. Again, this is for people who are in relationships that they want to save or they want to improve, or somebody just that you care about that you want to have better conversations or disagreements with. So that means learning to be vulnerable with the people that are closest to you. If you cannot, that tells me that there is a brick wall up in some of your emotional development. Okay, that's not to say you trust everybody, but we're talking about the people closest to you. So yes, stop covering other feelings with anger. If you feeling bitter, let's run with the bitter. If you feeling jealous, let's run with the jealous. If you feeling disappointed, like all of these other emotions that we have that can kind of get stuck underneath anger. But it really don't be about being mad. And most of the time people can see that. Like if you just hurt, you may come out in anger, but after you sit on it for a while, you start to kind of pick apart all of the other things that you are actually feeling. Sometimes it's embarrassment, sometimes it's shame, like all these other emotions that if we can identify those, we can work with those, because working with those is different than working with anger. Okay. Next is what we call impossible demands. So sometimes we get into arguments or fights and they include like vague or abstract demands, like I need you to be more considerate, or you need to stop being so picky. And sometimes these demands can be not necessarily that they are impossible, but they require a person to read your mind. People cannot read your mind. You have to be able to let them know exactly what it is that you need from them and be specific about it. So an example would be, let's go with I want you to be considerate. If you ask 5 different people what considerate looks like to them, you're going to get 5 different answers. So you can't just tell your man, oh, I want you to be more considerate. Or you can't just tell your girlfriend, like, I feel like you're not thoughtful. You need to stop being so selfish. What would that look like? Based on who you know that person to be. So if consideration is, for me, may look like it bothers me when it gets really late and I haven't heard from you. So call me if you're going to be late. That is what being more considerate would look like because of X, Y, Z. You know what I mean? So you want to have an understanding of when you want something from somebody, what does that look like? Because if you can't tell, like, I just want you to be more thoughtful. Now, if for you, thoughtful means acts of service where you wish that man would take out the garbage or do the dishes, but for him, he thinks you mean you want him to buy you stuff, you may be okay with the gifts, but you're not ultimately getting what you want. That's where these love languages come in, okay? So that's just an example of how sometimes the wires can get crossed, and a person cannot read your mind. So if you want a changed behavior, you have to be able to articulate how you want that behavior to be changed, especially if the person is open to change. Like, that's the biggest part. Is making sure that they are at least willing to meet you where you need to be met. But if you can't let them know how to get there, they'll never get there, okay? So you want to propose change. You want to state clearly, simply, and directly what you want your partner to do or not do. You want to be specific, and you want to avoid talking in terms of attitudes as far as I want you to be more considerate. You want to state your objective and behavioral terms. I want you to come right away. And when I say dinner is ready and come sit with me at the table, these are white people examples, but y'all get my gist. Okay, that's one of the ones that is here. But you want to, again, you got to be specific. People need to know what you need from them in order to meet your needs. Okay? So, the next one is threats and ultimatums. And I know some of y'all are good at this. Okay? Usually when somebody makes an impossible demand, sometimes that's usually followed by a threat or an ultimatum. It's backed up with like these excessive things like, I'll move out, or I'll leave you, or I'll hit you, I'll take the kids, whatever you want to call it. And the thing about threats and ultimatums, I'm not going to say that there is never there is never not an appropriate time to use them. I think that threats and ultimatums, they can't be taken lightly. Because what I tell my clients is a threat or an ultimatum can be a reflection of a boundary you're trying to set or enforce, right? So if I make this threat or this ultimatum an extension of a boundary that I'm trying to enforce, and I don't follow through on the ultimatum or the threat, where does that leave me? Because we teach people how to treat us. So if I tell you that if you cheat on me again, I'm leaving. And they cheat on you again and you stay. Because that is pretty much a threat. You cheat on me again, I'm leaving. That's why I tell, if you're just going to deal with shit, deal with it in private, in quietness. Like, don't be out here saying all this stuff what you're going to do if you're not going to stand behind it. Because then, when you don't stand behind it, that person is paying attention. They're seeing exactly how much they can get away with. So, don't say it if you don't mean it, okay? I had one guy I was talking to tell me, not talking to, but I was having a conversation with, and his girl, like, pretty much kind of put him out, and she was like, you need to leave, or whatever the case may be. And this may not sound like a threat or an ultimatum, but this is an example of doing something based off of emotion and impulse and then not being prepared to follow through on it. When you ask a man, especially a black man, to get out your house, that's tied to pride, baby. So be prepared for the most. If he wasn't stubborn before, he about to be the most stubborn he ever been. So don't think you're going to tell that man to get out your house and then you're going to feel bad about it and then try to apologize and he's going to come back. Rapport is ruined because you dinged his pride and his ego. And now he ain't ever going to want to stay with you again. So that's just an example of, like, don't go to a place that you're not prepared. Like, if you really not done with that man or you even have an inkling that you would deal with him, don't ever tell no man to get out your house like that. Not on some disrespectful stuff. It's one thing if I need some space, I need for you to leave. That's different than saying you can get out my house. Okay? So, again, if you're going to go there with a threat or ultimatum, you got to be prepared to stand on it. Because if not, you look like the joke. You look like the person that don't stand on your boundaries, okay? So I just encourage people not to go there if they are 100% behind what they're getting ready to be committed to. Because then you just look like you making empty threats. And people don't take you seriously, especially your partner. Like, she ain't gonna do nothing. That's the adopted perspective, all right? So I think that there is a difference between giving a threat and an ultimatum and describing consequences, right? And sometimes it's not necessarily about highlighting consequences when you want somebody to do something or you want them to change behavior. It's also about sharing and reminding them how this benefits them. So in this section, what they have as far as describing consequences is pretty much you want to describe any practical, emotional, financial, health, or other benefits of the change you are proposing. So the example they give in here is, the man, he want to stay up all night on his computer. The woman gets mad and she says, I'm going to throw that computer out the window if you don't, pretty much do what I tell you. And she knows she can't, that's a threat. She can't throw the computer out the window. Like, we all know that that's an empty threat. But she said it. So instead of that, the example given is, Tell that man, if you get off the computer by 11, you could come, like, we could come snuggle, we could bond, have some quality time, maybe get a little sexy, and you know what I mean? You gotta make it, especially for women to me, you gotta make it appealing, or you highlight the consequences of them not doing the change. So, in this example, okay, if you stay up all night on your computer, do not look to me to wake you up if you sleep through your alarm. That'll be on you. I'm not going out of my way to be late because you can't, go to bed on time. It's the same thing with kids. This sounds like a telltale of some kids. That's why, I tell people, your kids want to stay up all night. One day, just let them. If they fight you every time it's time for them to go to bed and they don't want to seem to understand that they need to go to sleep to get rest and to be functional the next day, let them have a party. And then when that alarm go off and they only had 3 hours of sleep, I bet you the impact of feeling the consequences of them making that choice is more impactful than you ranting and raving and nagging about the fact that you want them to go to bed and they ain't listening. Sometimes life lessons will serve you better than, a lecture. Okay? So, there's that. You want to there are natural consequences that happen when people don't change, right? So, again, if you don't, if you cheat on me and you continue to, you do that behavior, then I have to kind of reconsider where I stand in this relationship. But to sit here and to do all this big bad barking and not follow through, you look silly. All right? Okay. I think this is the last one? Yes. So, last note is about escalation. So, pretty much, unfair fights tend to escalate from just kind of simple and quiet disagreements to very loud arguments, from arguing to shouting to screaming at each other, and then that can even escalate to throwing things, damaging property, hitting, all this other stuff. All these places we don't want to go. We don't want an argument that could have stayed at a 3 or a 2 to hit a 10. It's just, for what? It's unnecessary. So, you want to pay attention to the pattern, right? So, the example that they give here, because I feel like this is an easy one. So, Dick and Dee Dee, that's their name. Dick and Dee Dee's fights followed a similar pattern. She would forget to meet him for lunch or pick him up at the gym. Later, he would be sitting in silence, mad, and that would prompt her to, make these nervous apologies. He would start to lecture her about her getting her shit together, and she would get defensive. He would raise his voice and start pacing. Waving his arms for emphasis, she would tell him to calm down. That would trigger his final outburst, tipping things over, kicking at the cat, or knocking magazines to the door as he stormed out. So, number one, Dick is something wrong with him because he's kicking cats. Well, any of your significant other is hurting an animal, they might be a psychopath. But pretty much what this demonstrates is the fact that if you have somebody that you can't seem to get on the same page with, or y'all argue about the same things, it's usually a cycle of some sort going on, a pattern, a flow, if you will. So for me, the example that I like to use in this scenario is with my dad. So I know that my dad, he get under my skin like nobody else really can. But there's only certain things that we really argue about. Things that involve money, things that involve, what do you want to call it? If he needs to do something for me and our schedule's on the line, we argue about stuff like that. What else? That's mainly it. Or stuff that has to do with bills and stuff, again, tied to finances. So because I know that, I was able to pay attention that every time we would get into it, it would usually start off like this. He would make a passive-aggressive comment, and some of us don't respond well to passive-aggressiveness. So he would make a passive-aggressive comment, and then I would get annoyed, and then I would, get mad. Kind of the way, if you start off a civil conversation and you feel like somebody's lying, and that just makes you more upset that they aren't being honest or forthcoming. Not necessarily in this situation, but that's kind of how it would go, where it's I would get loud and get upset because I just felt like he wasn't listening or wasn't understanding where I was coming from. And then he would get upset and get loud, and then it would end up with me crying and me either hanging up the phone or walking out. And, we would make up later, but what would happen is I like to call putting a Band-Aid on things. And that's one thing Dick and Dee Dee was doing. So Dick would come back around with some flowers, trying to apologize after they done got into it. All of that is a Band-Aid. A Band-Aid is just like, you want something to eat, or some flowers or something, but not really ever addressing what the real issue was. Just kind of pacifying it and sweeping it under the rug. And then what happens is it's just going to come up again later. Y'all just going to keep arguing about the same things over and over and over again. And like I said, like with my dad, it was like, yeah, we would end up being cool again, but we never got to what the issue was of what we really were talking about or disagreeing about, and we never came to a solution. So you want to be aware of what the pattern is, because once I became aware of, like, I'm learning all of these communication skills, I'm teaching communication skills to people, so I don't want to keep allowing, this goes back to not allowing people to pull out sides of you that you don't like. Because it's easy, if somebody else is on 10, for you to get on 10 with them. You know, we always talking about matching energy. But no, sometimes you need to be the energy that allows for other people to meet you where you at, because you so chill, because you're not going to go there. You know what I mean? So for him, it's like if we disagreeing on something now, again, being intentional. So now when I'm going to conversation with him that I know could potentially go left, just based on the topic or the subject matter, I, number one, keep in mind that I don't want to get loud. So I try to whisper. And it can seem very weird, but I try to, if I intentionally try to whisper, that prevents me from allowing my voice or for to raise, or for me to get emotionally dysregulated to the point where I'm raising my voice. Even if I'm getting mad, I need to stay calm. Okay? I need to stay solution focused. And another part of what's made our disagreements more successful is sometimes you have to be able to filter through people's passive aggressiveness. Like, again, I tell my clients, they gonna have skills other people don't have. So after watching this, y'all gonna have these skills that other people don't have. So that means you being the bigger person sometimes. So with my dad, it's like when he would make a passive aggressive comment, now I listen for what's underneath. So I'll give you an example. One time I was on the phone with my mom, and he was like, y'all gonna look up and y'all phone's gonna be off. And I'm just like, why would, old me would have been like, what are you talking about? Where did that come from? Like, why all of a sudden you saying this? Like, what is the issue? And I would have got nasty, and it would have been this back and forth. But I said, you know what, Brittany, let's listen for what he's really saying. What he's saying is, so we all on a family plan. We didn't all used to pay our phone bills. I mean, he used to pay for it. He used to pay for the phone bill. What he was saying was he's tired of paying a phone bill for everybody, and he would like some help. And as a man, sometimes it's hard for them to just come out and ask for help or say what they need, especially when it comes to money. So while he going on it, ranting and raving about y'all phones, look up at your phone, gonna be out. I said, Dad, what I hear you saying is you would like some help with the phone bill. You think it's time that we start contributing. Well, yeah, and okay, that's all you have to say. That's me teaching him that he don't have to be passive aggressive to get his needs met. He can just assertively say, hey, I'm looking to have you all start contributing to the phone bill in the upcoming month. That's it. But he don't know no better. This is how he used to communicating with people or getting a need met. So because I know better, I gotta help. And you know what? Because I stayed at a 3, he came from a 10 to a 3, So sometimes we can prevent things when we can point out, like, where do our arguments typically go wrong? Like, what is happening? What is the pattern that's going on that prevents us from being able to successfully get to the end of an argument without, there being yelling or screaming or, because that gets exhausting. Y'all don't be tired of having these big blown out arguments? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm really here to help y'all with is, ladies, if you want your man to be able to talk to you, you got to be able to create the space where he feels comfortable that he can. And fellas, if you want to feel like she ain't always nagging or got something to disagree with you about, that means being able to sit down and listen when she does want to talk versus avoiding because he ain't trying to hear that stuff. If we collaboratively work together, we can dead a lot of these narratives that we have when it comes to communicating within relationships. So, another thing you can do is this. So, three things you can do to prevent escalation. You want to stay aware of the nonverbal parts of the fight. So, when people start to get louder, when their bodies start to tense up, when they start standing up and pacing, pointing fingers, clenching fists, all of these things, these physical things that happen as people start to get more and more and more upset. Those things are important. Second thing you want to notice, that if you are getting excited, sometimes when you're in the midst of an argument, everybody, common sense and like being rational go out the window. Everybody just amped and emotionally charged. So you want to be able to recognize that within yourself, be able to take a step back, take a breath, and just stop talking for a second. Because that's how we usually get to the place of no return, when we don't realize, okay, at this moment it's time for me to leave the room because I'm going to say something that I may not be able to take back, or that may be very hurtful. You want to be able to, like, you and the person that you're talking to, or you and your partner want to be able to collaborate when it's time for y'all to kind of just take a step back because the conversation's getting ready to go in a direction neither one of y'all want to go. Oh, and the third thing is implementing timeouts. Now, I know some people be like, that shit don't work. It works if you work it. It works if you and the person have agreed that you all want to have better communication with one another. So, that means being able to agree, like, in advance on whatever, sometimes they, like in here, they suggest you use the signal. Sometimes you can just be able to say, like, hey, I need time out. And then all the talking stops. Because that's something else we get caught up in. It's like, who's going to get the last word? I'm going to get the last word. At this point, none of that matters. You want to stop this from escalating. So that means both people just kind of retreating and going into separate directions. No last words. None of that. And you don't necessarily want to, like, you want to have space, but you don't want to leave. Because I know for women, if y'all just finish an argument and you like, okay, we need a break, or we need to, chill out, I'll come back and talk to you later. That man get in that car, you going to start thinking about all the million and one things that he could be going to do, whether that be cheating or, driving crazy because he upset or whatever, end up in the ditch. Our minds just go to the worst case scenario. So don't necessarily leave. I do think that separating, going to different rooms, going for a walk, whatever you want to say, temporarily, just so that you all can breathe and kind of come back to what you want to, what you really want to get down to at the end of it. But you all want to agree on, okay, we're gonna reconvene at this time on this day or whatever. You want to return. You don't want to be drinking or smoking or doing any other drugs during the timeout. This is literally a time for you to just breathe and get your thoughts in order. Not to go and try to suppress what you're feeling, because then we already talked about what happens when you try to have serious conversations when people are drunk. You also want to know the difference between, like, hyping yourself up and being able to decide how you want to make the conversation more productive than it's been. So, if you leave and you this is what I'm finna say when I get back in there. They finna hit this for me. That's just gonna keep you in this mode. All hyped and stuff. You don't need to be there. We trying to chill out. We trying to deactivate the nervous system. So if it makes more sense for you to sit down and say, this is how I wanted to present myself, or write that down, then okay, that you can rehearse. But anything that's just gonna keep you upset, you don't want to do that. And then you want to check back in with the person. Like, do we think that this is a good time to reconvene? Or should we give ourselves some more time and plan for the future? Okay? So, ultimately, when it comes to disagreements or fights, you want to be able to end in some form of agreement, counter-proposal, or postponement. So, some simple fights end where it's just like you set your case and propose a change, and then your partner says okay, and then that's the end of it. But however, if the two of you all still don't see eye to eye, where it's like, well, this is what I feel like we should do. The counter proposal will be, okay, well, this is what I feel like we should do. and then you talk about both to come to a compromise. I promise y'all, that's it. Um, or you have many successful fights that ends with an agreement that we just don't put this to bed for today. We're gonna take it off the table and we'll deal with it at another time. Or, and I know some people hate this, but we will just agree that we have two different perspectives on this. Now, if those two perspectives can function differently and they can coexist without causing much friction, then okay. Sometimes things can't. So that means you have to you got to be able to decide, okay, we're going to postpone this so that way we can agree to talk at a different time and place to address the issue again. Don't just sweep it under the rug. Don't just act like people going to forget, because they don't. They don't. That's why I tell you, stoppers don't be avoiding people when they need to talk to you. When they say they need to talk to you about something, and you actually care about their feelings. Because all it's gonna do is sit and simmer. It's just gonna sit on their mind, and they just gonna get more and more agitated that you ignoring them, or that you avoiding the conversation at hand, and then they start to feel like you don't care, all this other stuff. So I hope y'all learned some things. I hope you apply some things. Again, this is just to help us have more productive, mature fights. Because people gonna fight. Like that's one thing. You and your partner, or you and your mama, whoever it is, your sister, everybody's not gonna always agree. They not. So how do we get through disagreements in the best way possible, in the most functional way possible? And I understand people gonna lose their cool, but as long as both parties are able to say, I want to make this better between us, that's the first step, is the willingness, is the openness, is the idea that both of us want to be intentional about improving our interactions with one another when we disagree, so they just don't get nasty. Because sometimes stuff just go to places it don't need to go. You don't need to be nasty about stuff all the time. And again, people they just wonder why, oh, well, my man don't talk to me. Like, I had one of my life coaching clients today said, one of the little girls he was messing with, she asked him, what you be doing in therapy? What's all he talking about? And it's just like, and of course, he's like, I don't really want to talk about it with you because it's private. Well, you feel like you can't talk to me? Exactly, hon. That's exactly it. And the worst thing is to be dealing with somebody, sexually, romantically, intimately, and you feel like you can't even talk to them. So, get to a therapist if that's the case. You know what I mean? While we're here. But, yeah, I hope everybody took something from this and just have more productive fights. It's okay to fight. We just want to keep it cute. We want to keep it cute and keep it respectful. All right? So, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all evening. I'll see y'all next time.